So the NBA draft is coming up in just a few weeks. I feel like the excitement's a little different now because the Kings are picking 24th rather than number 4 overall, but we still want to know what the hell is going on. So we talk to people that know what's going on, who pay attention to it. One of our favorites, Bobby Gerould. He does great stuff at HoopObsession.com, where he's got his player rankings up for the draft. He updates it, and he joins us now on the Deuce and Mo podcast. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm well. How about you all?
Good. We're great.
Yeah.
I mean, are you still as excited about the draft process, even though the Kings don't have some crazy high lottery pick?
Yeah, for me, whether or not the Kings even have a pick, it wouldn't matter. I get goofy for the NBA draft and always have. That's kind of been my thing. Started really concentrating on it in 1999. I mean, I was always interested in it, but in 99, I kind of made it a point to, I'm going to really get into this, because there were some picks before that I just didn't understand. And I would hear things and get information, and then it would turn out to not be true. And I was like, I don't trust the people who are telling me these things. So I want to know for myself. So I just started digging into it, and I'm super OCD about it. So that's how it is.
I love it.
We have a visitor.
Oh, wait.
Hi, Prince.
Prince. Hi, Prince. Oh,
Hey, Kim, can you come and get Prince?
I Prince the cat, always making appearances.
I know, pay attention to me. Why are you watching so much basketball?
And the thing is I just asked her before we came on. I was like, you think he's all right? She's like, oh, he's totally looking at birds outside the window. He's going to be fine.
It's always when you push record is when the animals come, right?
Yep.
So...
Right.
Bobby,
you're taken care of.
You're fine. You're talking about how you have not only been doing this for so long, but like have the OCD for it. I feel like over the years, especially being in this market, even if you're looking at all the guys, it's probably has been fun really doing some of the research on who the Sacramento Kings can get in the lot with some of those lottery picks. Now the Kings have the 24th pick. So did you change the way that you went about things, or was it just as exciting? Are you excited about the talent that is in this draft, even when you start going more into the 20s?
Yeah, I think you can still get a good player. And I think some of that is because, as you two both know, there'll be some swings and misses, right? So there's a chance for the people towards the end of the first round, I think, to take advantage of the swings and misses. So, that's kind of where I'm at. And I think there's a debate I've heard around town about, do you take a risk here because you're a little bit more established now? You are a playoff team. Maybe it gives you a little bit of wiggle room, or do you just try to go and pick, another player that's as much of a sure thing as you could possibly find at pick 24? And, whether or not that player is there, what remains to be seen. But it's an interesting conversation to have. How are you two feeling about it? Do you want the big swing, or you want a base hit?
Bobby, I go back and forth because, you could take the big swing, and that player maybe ends up in Stockton, and you have to deal with developmental and how does that come about. But then you start looking around and going, can you find the Walker Kessler, Christian Brown, who is still young enough and still has upside, but can also help you this year? I don't know. Does that player exist?
I think he does. I'm a fan of Trayce Jackson-Davis, but he's 23 years old. And so,
he's ancient.
Right, exactly. You know how it is in the NBA draft circles. People want to discount the seniors. But I really feel like Trayce Jackson-Davis, if you watch him, he'd be a good fit actually too. So he's talented, and I think he'd be a good fit. He could score in the low post really well. And if you double team him, and he did require a double team in college, he has the vision and ability to pass out of that double team. So in that sense, I think you get something that the Kings don't really have when Domas comes off the floor right now, whether it was Lynn or Rashawn Holmes or Keita, whoever was coming in, or even Trey Lyles to some extent, playing a little bit smaller as the backup center. When that would happen, it was almost like the Kings offense had to totally change, because you couldn't throw it to the center in the high post and then have action cutting off of him the way you get with Sabonis. I think you could continue to play seamlessly. Now, he's not Sabonis.
Sure.
But he's not a bad consolation prize from Sabonis either, with his ability to pass and find cutters. I think he averaged 4 assists this year, did Trayce Jackson-Davis, and a double-double on top of that. So, I mean, he's a little bit small for a pivot in the NBA, and so that's a little bit concerning. But he is a great help side shot blocker. And I think he's tough. He plays with force, even though he's a little bit smaller. So, I'm a fan of Trayce Jackson-Davis, and I think he'll be there at 24, and maybe even there's a chance that he's there early in the second round, which is what's the Kings' second round pick after that.
Was that 39?
Let's see. I'm like 38.
38.
Yeah. So, maybe there's a chance that he'd be there, but he's probably gone at that point. So, that would probably be the way I'd lean right now, is Trayce Jackson-Davis, but there's a few players that I like, definitely.
Yeah. So I guess, and I want to get to all the players that you like, because I think these names are important to be thrown out there and for other people to, go watch their highlights and get just as excited as you. But one of the names that keeps getting tied to the Sacramento Kings would be Kris Murray, for obvious reasons. Plus, I mean, he's just another talented Murray out there. So how are you feeling about him? And he's going to definitely be gone before that 24th pick, right?
I think he'll be gone. That's my best gut guess on that. I like Kris a lot too. I would definitely have him in the conversation. Wouldn't be mad at all if it was, Trayce Jackson-Davis or Kris Murray, either one of them. Kris is basically Keegan shooting left-handed, maybe even a little bit lighter on his feet. I don't think he's the scorer or maybe the accurate shooter from deep that Keegan is, but he's not bad either. And if you really watched him, a lot like Keegan, he can score in so many ways. He could take you down in the post. He's a great cutter. He could shoot the three. He could pass, dribble, shoot. There's really not a lot he can't do. So I think he'd be a seamless fit as well. And I think, we know the Murray family, good family. You're not going to have any issues with the dad or, outsiders or an entourage or any of that kind of stuff, as we've seen from some different prospects through the years with the Sacramento Kings. So I'm a fan of Kris Murray, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think he makes it past Golden State at 19. You know what I mean? He just seems like at that point they would take a player with some size who's got the shooting ability, lefty. There's a lot to like about his game. I mean, I would not hesitate to take him if he was there at 24. You have him ranked in your, I think the last one I saw, you had him number 10 in your rankings.
Yeah, I have him pretty high. And, I do it different than other folks. Other folks are doing a mock draft.
Sure.
I'm doing just a ranking of where I think they should go. And yes, I do have Kris 10th right now. A lot of people would put Taylor Hendricks in front of Kris, which, I could probably go either way on that one. Anthony Black is a guy who's a little bit lower on my list than he is on a lot of other people's lists. Grady Dick as well. So there's a few guys that I'm just not as sure about as some of the other folks seem to be.
Who are maybe some players that are being overlooked in your mind right now in terms of the draft buzz? Because you just talk about the mock draft, and who are maybe some players flying under the radar that could be in the Kings mix?
There's a couple that I really like that, they're not going to get picked in the first round. Another old guy is Kobe Brown from Missouri. He played here in the NCAA tournament at Golden One Center. But he's a 6'8", 240 wing that can shoot it. Will dive on the floor to get after balls. I think he's a possibility in the second round. Santa Clara's Brandon Pajemski is someone who's interesting to me. He tested pretty well athletically at the combine, which I think surprised some folks, because I think that was the biggest question was, is this guy going to be athletic enough when you watch him play at Santa Clara? And of course, it's maybe not the greatest conference, but I think we've seen that there are a lot of players in the NBA that don't come from the biggest conferences or a power conference and can still come in and play some hoop. So I think Pajemski has definitely put himself into that first round mix. Some of the other second round guys I like are Jalen Slauson from Furman. I don't hear anybody really ever talk about him.
That's a deep cut.
I like
Watching some Furman basketball, that's deep.
right. Paladins. Here we go. True story. I didn't even know what their nickname was until this year. It was like, I have to watch Furman. Are you serious? And then I watched this guy. He's like a 6'7" wing that can score. He's got a little something to him. So I like him as a possible second round guy. I like a couple of the European players. Bilal Coulibaly, who he's not going to be there at all. But I mean,
that's Victor's teammate, right?
Yeah, Victor's teammate. And if you've been watching some of that, like he's really come on. He's a nice player. I think he might sneak into the lottery actually.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then Nadir Hifi. I don't know if you're hip to him at all.
No.
So yeah, okay. So check him out.
Okay.
Nadir Hifi. A little combo guard that plays at NBA speed, that can shoot it, plays defense, gives an honest effort. I think he's someone who is a little bit of a sleeper. I know I'm going deep.
No, we love this.
Love
this is why
Bobby.
we come to you, Bobby.
Yeah.
We want to know these players. We want to be, especially with the Kings picking later and having some second round picks, we got to know these guys.
And it feels like it's like we just don't know what's going to happen, so we have to know a lot more guys than usual too.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned a whole bunch of guys, but I'm curious, and it could be one of those guys. Do you have just a draft crush this year? It doesn't even have to be for the Kings. It could just be like, what? Wait, wasn't Bobby super into Shaedon Sharpe? Okay. Yes, I remember you talking about Shaedon Sharpe. Like, you always have a draft crush. Who is it this year?
This year, my draft crush is Jarace Walker from Houston. If there was one player that I think would just be perfect for the Kings, it would be him. Like, if there was anyone to trade, it'd have to be a trade-up thing. He's going to go in the lottery. But, you know, he's about LeBron size and has the agility that you just don't see from people that size. A little bit of a question about the 3-point shot. He did shoot it at a respectable clip. I think 35% this year. So, you know, that's certainly passable, a little bit below league average and not on high volume. So I think that's a little bit of a concern, as some people are like, is he really a stretch 4, or is he going to end up being a low percentage shooter guy? But just hard hat, like dive on the floor, spit nails. He'd be one of your favorites, Deuce. There's no doubt about it.
He's got that dog.
Cason Wallace from Kentucky is another one that I really like. Another defender who's just got that dog in him that gets on the floor after loose balls. And he'd be someone you'd have to trade up for. But Jarace Walker from Houston, he has that hard hat. And to me, you know, the defensive end is where the Kings can really improve. Defense and toughness. And I think you would solve both of those problems with Jarace Walker.
No surprise that type of player is playing for Kelvin Sampson either, right? Like,
right.
That's what he commands. And
absolutely,
those guys bring it. They absolutely bring it.
Kelvin Sampson. I was interested when they said he got an interview with the Bucks for their head coaching spot. I was like, wow, it might really happen, this guy, because I think he's such a good coach.
We've got more with Bobby Gerould coming up in just a second, but we should mention that today's podcast presented by Joey Reagan over at Lion Real Estate. Hey, Morgan, I need to find a house in Sacramento, but I don't even get where to look.
That's why you call Joey. He's the best in the biz when it comes to Sacramento. Seriously, he's been like one of the top sellers and everything. People keep coming to him to buy and sell their home. So make sure to check out his website. But he's one of those people that you can just connect with at all times of the day. Shoot him a text if you have any interest. I know we've had some listeners just shoot him some random text like, hey, do you have any clients that want to do this? Or, hey, I have a house. Hey, can you find me this type of house and or condo?
So go to his website, jreagan.golion.com. That's jreagan.golion.com. You can also call or text him today at 916-412-4592, 916-412-4592. That's license number 02128070. How are you feeling about the G League Ignite guys? Because again, it's another year where they look like they could have multiple first round picks. Of course, Scoot is going to be number 2 or number 3. Leonard Miller looks like he's rising a bit. And then of course, CD. Where are you at with these G League Ignite guys?
So Leonard Miller's numbers are really good, right? I mean, you guys saw him play. There's some stuff that he can do. went to the G League Showcase, as did you guys. And watching him play, my thought was, and this was back in December of 2022 in Las Vegas. My thought was, here's a kid playing with grown men, is kind of, and from a maturity standpoint, his game seemed that way to me. I thought if you looked at some Ignite games after the showcase, I thought he got better and his numbers got better. He ended up averaging a double-double on the season. And you see some of the things he can do in transition other people just can't do. I mean, he has some athletic gifts. A little bit of that disconnect, though, I thought, with him and his teammates. So I try not to overanalyze, right, Morgan? We've been through this before where we don't want to overanalyze the personality and pigeonhole somebody, but it's hard to go against your instincts. Like if your gut is telling you, there might be something, just I don't know what it is.
As a teammate, though, or like a personality trait?
I just thought just young, young.
Yeah.
Like his game just seemed young, like some of the shots he would take. And then I spoke with, you know how it is. You speak with people and I talked to some teammates and, who's your favorite teammate? Well, his name didn't come up first. The guy whose name did come up first was Sidy Cissoko. Everyone loves Sidy Cissoko. So, but I think, he has a ways to go from, I'd like to see him be more aggressive. I'll put it that way. I think he settles on the perimeter a little bit too much for someone with his considerable skill, athleticism. But again, he's just a kid, and some of these kids, some are gonna regress a little bit, and maybe it'll be too much for him, and some of them are gonna get better, through development and time. And Sissoko seems like the kind of kid that if he was there at 24th and we drafted him, I would think that, with all of the development coaches and everything that Sacramento has, they could probably mold something out of this guy. And, so I wouldn't be mad at all if Sissoko was one of the picks.
How concerned are you with the shooting numbers?
Yeah, he's never been an acceptable shooter, although he likes to shoot them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say it's a concern. What do you guys think? You watched him.
You probably watched him a lot more with our schedule. I mean, I saw him a couple of times, especially that last visit to Stockton, and that was one of his better games. I mean, you see the upside there.
Right.
It may take a minute, and that's the biggest thing when I look at him. I go, all right, you're just gonna have to be patient, and maybe that is the type of swing you take if you believe that he could 3 years from now be an impact guy in your team. Yeah, you take him. So, I mean, I guess my biggest concern is when players don't shoot well. I think you just need to be able to shoot in this league. I mean, we can love guys all day long, and I do the same thing. I've talked about this, like Jared Vanderbilt. I there's a lot to like there. What he does defensively in the playoffs, the Lakers couldn't play him.
Right.
You know,
and that's scary in this draft. Like I've tweeted before, I'd be scared to death of some of these prospects. There's a ton of guys who can't shoot. The Thompson twins are not acceptable shooters. You can go right down the line here. Let's see, Leonard Miller, not a great shooter. Cason Wallace is like a 35% guy. Noah Clowney is not a shooter. Anthony Black didn't really show that he's a great shooter. So there's quite a few guys up there. Derek Lively's another one that I hear a lot of people talk about. And, we've seen some video of him making shots in the corner, standing by himself. And so now people think he can shoot threes. But, as I pointed out on some other podcasts, I mean, in the NBA, it's, standing in a corner shooting threes with no one guarding you is one thing, and making one in an actual NBA game when a defender's running at you, it's, I mean, it has to be part of your DNA, part of your game. If you go to Kings games and you watch Rashawn Holmes warm up before the game, he'll stand in the corner and make 8 to 10 threes in a row. And then he gets in a game and he never shoots them. I mean, he never really has the opportunity to shoot them. And it's probably not the first shot you would want. It's like, okay, if it's desperation and he ends up with a grenade in his hand, and the shot clock running down, okay, Rashawn, let it fly. And he's a good free throw shooter. There's really no reason he shouldn't be having that as part of his arsenal. But I don't think that you're going to expect Derek Lively to come in and shoot threes. Trayce Jackson-Davis, as much as I've been hyping him, he doesn't shoot threes either. So
yeah, I know some people are mentioning the fact that the same thing where like, hey, draft combine, he was knocking him down. I'm like,
right.
These are just
Yeah.
You're just shooting around at this. I mean, I could probably knock down some threes just shooting around. You put me in the game, I'm not taking a three, Morgan.
Deuce is not making a three
I don't have
either.
the confidence in that shot in the game.
And Bobby, speaking of that next level, then, you know, I think one of the guys I want to talk a little bit more about was Scoot Henderson. We've seen him and his body grow day by day. It feels like we're seeing like a new photo of him shirtless. And it's like, did he just put on like 20 pounds of muscle again? What are you expecting from him at the next level?
I think he's going to be really good. I mean, you know, he just, you know, the shot's probably a little bit of a concern with Scoot too. But my thing is this, and it's kind of just been a rule that I've been more in tune with and more believing in over the last couple of years. And that is, if you can't shoot the three at 33%, then you better be special otherwise, right? I mean, and so we can look around the NBA at some of those players, you know, what defines special? Well, we're talking Giannis, we're talking Ja, we're talking De'Aaron Fox. You know, Fox shot 32.4% this year. We're talking Pascal Siakam, 32%, DeMar DeRozan, 32%, Josh Giddey, 32%. But I think you could say all those guys have a special skill otherwise, right? So it's when you get a little bit lower in that list and you start to get into your Marvin Bagley's, Jared Vanderbilt, who you mentioned, Hami Diallo. These are all guys that have shown flashes of brilliance otherwise, but just can't consistently make shots. And then, you know, there's the worst example is Ben Simmons, who just doesn't shoot it at all and has really ruined his career because of it. And he won't even, I mean, he doesn't even want to shoot it. Like, he won't even attempt them. So that's an issue. So, you know, you get down to it with the non-shooters and you ask that simple question, are they special otherwise? And I would say Scoot is, right? I mean, I think he shows flashes, and I'm not the comparison guy, but he shows flashes of young Derrick Rose when Derrick Rose was, you know, just flying up and down the court. You couldn't stay in front of him and get to the basket, sets other people up. And by all accounts, and I don't know if you guys have heard anything different, Scoot's a good kid, right?
Yeah.
All my interactions with him have been great.
Amazing.
Everyone I talk to around G League Ignite, they rave about him. We sat down with him at Summer League last year, and we interviewed him for like 30 minutes. He was awesome.
And just a different type of mentality. You know, we talk about taking that to the next level. When you have that different mindset of you know, just your work ethic, your passion, everything, like he has that drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see him missing. You know, and even if people like to discount Russell Westbrook here in 2023, but I mean, you know, even if he ends up to be Russell Westbrook, we're still talking about a Hall of Fame player, right?
Yeah.
Even if that shot never does come along, he's still going to be able to get it done and provide other things out there on the court. So, and I love the Ignite situation. I love that, you know, Pooh Jeter is a teammate and a mentor, and I like the coaching staff. I just like everything that they do there with the Ignite, and I think it's a really good option for some of these young players. And as opposed to, and I don't know if you guys watched any Overtime Elite basketball this year.
No, we have not.
It's crazy. Like it's all, you know, young kids, say 18 to, I don't know, 20, 21. And it's, you know, back and forth, just up and down, transition, not a lot of defense. They have weird rules. They have like a power play where it's a little bit goofy. Right. But apparently they've invested in some good coaching there too. You know, cool. I know they have some ex-NBA guys in there working with these kids. So it'll be interesting to see how the Thompson twins develop, because neither one of them are great shooters. But, you know, I come back to my question. If you're not a great shooter, are you otherwise special? And both of them are. They both have athletic gifts that other potential draftees are like, man, I wish I could have some of that. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how it all works out. I know I'm rambling here, but
no.
sometimes when I watch the Thompson twins, I see Josh Jackson, and that worries me a little bit because, you know, from a basketball standpoint, now it seems like Josh had some other things going on,
Sure.
you know, outside or off of the court,
Yeah.
or maybe it was just how much time he put in or didn't put in to his trade. And I haven't heard a bad word at all about the Thompson twins.
Okay.
So maybe it's a completely different situation, but from a basketball standpoint, I look back on that draft where Josh Jackson went in 2017. Where did he go? He was pretty.
Was that 4 to Phoenix, I think?
Yeah, 4th pick.
Wow.
So it went
Nice.
Ayton, Bagley, Doncic, Josh Jackson, and then, you know, Trae Young was still on the board.
I think I think Josh Jackson was Fox's year, right? I think that was. So you had.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
That was Fultz.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah,
my bad.
Fultz, Ball,
Right.
Tatum.
Fultz, Ball, Tatum, Josh Jackson.
Whoa. And then
Yeah.
Fox goes 5.
And a team could have had Fox. A team could have had Lauri Markkanen, Malik Monk, Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo. So yeah, thank you for correcting me there.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
looking at, I said Jay Jackson Jr., which was Jaren Jackson.
Yeah.
2018. So my bad.
Victor, I mean, the hype around him is at another level. I mean, it really is, and I get it for sure. He looks like he could be a special talent. What have you seen from him? Have you seen anyone quite like him in your years of watching the draft or watching these prospects?
I haven't. You know, we've seen some big, tall players that like to shoot from the perimeter. Say Porzingis comes to mind. I'm old enough to have seen a lot of Ralph Sampson play, but I think Ralph was even a little bit more around the basket. But you know, you saw probably the video the other day of him in a layup line. He throws it off the glass, catches it, goes between the legs, and dunks it. It's like, okay. I was a dummy who said some things originally about Wembanyama being closer to Rudy Gobert than you know, offensively. And now I'm rolling that back. Okay, I'm taking that back.
Hey, that's okay. We have, you know what? At least you acknowledge it. You're not just sticking by and go, no, I'm telling you, it's Gobert.
I'm all about getting educated, and I still am getting educated. I mean, it's June 5th, and we've still got a couple of weeks plus here before the draft actually starts, and I will change my mind on some things, definitely. But the thing with Wembanyama is when you first look at him play, like I watched that game at the beginning of the year against Ignite, and I thought Scoot was actually better than Victor in that game. I was like, man, Victor floats a lot out on the perimeter. He's really happy to shoot his 3-point shot, which he doesn't shoot well. He's never in any season. I went back and looked at all of his numbers. He's 27% from 3-point field goal range as a pro. That's over the last 4 seasons. So that's not a good percentage, and he likes to shoot them on high volume. Is Popovich going to allow him to do that? You know, maybe he tones that down a little bit, or maybe they just give him free reign because he's such a stud. But he's an 82% free throw shooter, so he has touch. Yeah. There's no question that he has touch. And I think the low percentage from 3 is probably more a function of bad shot selection and just, you know, getting some jacks up, taking contested shots than it is a guy who can't really shoot. So that's my one concern about Victor. My other concern about him is the assist to turnover. You know, he's a more turnover than assist guy, which is something I'm always big on. But you know, that could change, and he's number 1 on my board, and that's not going to change. I think, you know, he's potentially an all-star guy, and it'll be up to Popovich and the Spurs to kind of rein him in a little bit offensively. But I think defensively, he's going to make such a dramatic difference for them.
And what about when everyone starts talking about him physically, like his body and how he hasn't stopped growing and all the stretching that he has to do before games? Sometimes I feel like people are trying to push out that narrative like, oh, you should be worried. And other times I'm right there though. I'm like, oh yeah, the history of big, tall people in sports alone, not just in basketball, in sports, and the problems that can come into play. Does any of that even concern you, or is it just like that can happen to anyone?
I'm sure it would be in the back of my head if I was the Spurs, right? I mean, you look at him, he is skinny, and just somebody that long, it just seems like the physics of it, right? I mean, at some point, you just wonder if something bad's gonna happen there, and you hope it doesn't. It'd be a risk I'd be willing to take.
Yeah, yeah.
That way. You look at some of the things the guy can do. I mean, he's such a shot blocking threat. He's blocking shots on the perimeter. Guys think they're open, and guys are driving. He's on the other side of the lane. They think they've got a layup, and he's coming all the way across. And get that. You know what I mean? It's just
it's ridiculous.
It's a little bit ridiculous with some of the things. So I think that his biggest impact will be on the defensive end, and that's probably where he's going to change a team, and that's probably where I got my cockamamie. He's more Gobert than because I really do think he's going to make a huge defensive impact, but I don't know if he'll average 20 points in the NBA as a rookie. I think he averages 21 or 22 right now where he's at, and he is playing in a really good league, the Jeep Elite League. That's France's number one league. He's playing with grown men.
Okay, so perfect world for the Sacramento Kings. In your world, perfect situation. Who are they taking at number 24 if everything went right for them?
So if everything went right, for me, it would be Trayce Jackson-Davis or Tristan Vucevic.
Oh, I'm glad you brought him up. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know anything about him, but before someone in our Discord goes, hey, you got to watch this guy at the draft combine scrimmages. And I watched him like, oh, wow. And he was projected to be maybe a second round guy. Seems like he's moving up a bit. What do you like about him?
He's been in my first round for a while just because I took the time to watch. That's one of the beautiful things these days, with YouTube and everything, you can watch these European games. I mean, it's not that difficult. If you got a smart TV, you can figure it out. Right. So, do a little Google search and you'll look for a full game of Tristan and you'll find one. And so I watched him and I was thinking, man, this sure looks like a first round pick to me. He can shoot. I mean, he can really shoot. He's big, but not such a softie. There've been some bigs that were just shooters in the NBA over the years, say Channing Frye, someone like that comes to mind. I think he's got a little more of that toughness and grit to go along with the shooting ability. So he's someone that I like, as you guys both said, shooting. You've got to be able to shoot. And then if you could shoot, then we go from there and look at all the rest of the stuff. So I like him from that standpoint. He'd give the Kings a little something different from the big spot, behind Sabonis, because he'd be, so much more of a shooter. He's tall. He's like 7 feet tall, and can handle it a little bit, moves fluidly. He's definitely someone that could be a sleeper pick at 24. Ooh. So he or Trayce Jackson-Davis, I think, would make me happy. I'm a little bit intrigued by Noah Clowney.
Okay.
From Alabama. He has a ways to go. He's a little bit more one of those Captain Save a prospect guys where you gotta coach him up. He's in the 20s as a 3-point shooter, but when you watch him shoot, it looks good. It looks, like when you watch him, you think, wow, that's an NBA player. He's got the NBA body. He just fits the suit. You know what I mean? And he looks like one of those guys that with good coaching and development could really be a player. So one of those three guys would be great. At 38, I love Kobe Brown from Missouri. I told you about him being a little bit older, so that remains to be seen. I love Oscar Tshiebwe from Kentucky.
And they worked him out. Yeah.
He has great hands, man. Like not an offensive dynamo or anything like that, but just a pure rebounder. He has the suction cups for hands, which I don't throw around, very often. The ball just is attracted to him, and he did some impressive things. If you look back over, let me see if I can dig up a couple of notes here that I had on Tshiebwe, because there were a couple of things about him that stood out more so than some of the other prospects. So, okay, here we go. Positive defender, one of the things I always look at is what is your defensive rating versus your team's defensive rating. So Kentucky, 4.7 points per 100 possessions better when he's on the floor. He's the career leader in SEC box score plus minus. So that tells you right there. I mean, a guy plays 2 or 3 seasons at a school, or 4 seasons in Oscar's case, and he's a career leader in box score plus minus. That's a big deal to me. He does a good job drawing fouls, even though he's a low usage player, which tells me that, you know, he's going to fit in. A lot of these guys, especially if you're looking at someone at like 24, right? We're not talking about someone who's going to be a high usage guy. He's going to have the ball in his hands. I mean, that's going to be Fox. That's going to be Sabonis, right? On this team. And there's going to be a pecking order. Oscar's one of those guys where you would just throw him out there. You don't ever have to run a play for him. He's going to get every rebound. He'd be a Kings version of Looney, you know, basically.
You'll
Right.
take that.
Yeah.
You'll take that.
Right. So I'm saying, to me, if it was a little bit more about need, Oscar really is someone who makes a lot of sense for the Kings. At 38, Julian Strawther might still be there from Gonzaga. Little bit intriguing with his shooting ability from the wing. Also someone that maybe put me off a little bit with his personality. Some of the things that he said. Seems to be very sure of himself. We'll just leave it at that. Maybe more so than he should be for a 38th pick. And then at 54, I really like Toumani Camara from Dayton. He's someone that you should check out. He's like a 6'8", 6'9" power forward that can shoot. Under the radar guy that was really great. He went from Portsmouth to the G League Ignite camp, and then was one of the guys that got invited to the real NBA Combine. So someone to keep an eye on. Just another guy who I think would fit in seamlessly and seems to have that great personality.
Bobby does his homework.
Does it all.
This is what I love about it.
Yeah.
I'm just like obsessed with trying to not listen to because there's so many. Here's the thing that people need to understand is, you know, like I could think of one guy off the top of my head for sure whose family is actually in the agency business, but he's a draft analyst and gets, you know, followed and mentioned and talks about all these people. And it's like, okay, but who is his family representing? You know what I mean? So you gotta consider those things.
No, there's absolutely agendas when it comes to mock drafts. And you have to be careful for it. So that's why I appreciate how you just rank the guys and like the big boards that people do out there. You say you're obsessed. Yeah. HoopObsession.com. That's why you got to check it out, because Bobby's been doing it for years. And I think that's the way to go about it. Just rank the players.
Yeah. And there was another, like the other day, one of the major media, you know, they put out a little video of the individual workouts, and Grady Dick shows off his explosiveness. And I was like, okay, let me look at something real quick. And I go back and look at the 3/4 court sprint times for the NBA draft combine this year. Grady Dick was dead last. Dead last was, let's see, a 5/100ths of a second slower than Zach Edey in the you know, so it's like, okay, how explosive is he really?
Yeah.
Or we're going back to when someone at Summer League said Papagiannis showed some quickness. I almost did a spit take and you know what I mean? It's just, you really have to, you can't just take people at their word on some of this stuff. You've got to go dig it out for yourself.
Well, that's why you're one of the best, Bobby. Seriously, we can't thank you enough for spending some time with us, and I'm sure we'll be bugging you again post-draft to get your thoughts on what the Kings did and the rest of the draft.
You guys never bug me. You know that I'm always available to talk hoops anytime.
The one and only Bobby Gerould.